Greetings, gods and goddesses in training. Welcome back to the channel. It is Uncle Makara, all relations. Today we're talking all about the flow state revolution, why ego death is so essential for manifestation. And this is going to be an incredible topic, and I'm ready to share it with you guys because these are revelations. These are things that I've been exploring for the past few days as I've been noticing a lot of resistance. And I've been working through that resistance, as you can tell. And I'm moving through it so swiftly because I understand where are my inner blockages, where are things that are getting in the way of my manifestations. And I'm truly starting to understand it. I'm truly starting to bring a new, fresh pair of eyes to this whole thing, you know? Because here's the real truth, man. Once you start to understand this manifestation stuff, let me just share this with the tribe first. Once you begin to really get this manifestation stuff, right, you'll understand that the you that is trying to manifest is usually the same you that is blocking that manifestation. Okay? So the you that's trying to manifest still has the programming that stops you from getting what you desire. So the ego wants control, but creation requires surrender. Creation requires your letting go. The ego says, I'll manifest by working harder, by doing more, by trying to fix everything. But reality doesn't respond to force. Reality responds to frequency and the way you live in your frequency and your state of being, it is registered. So what is your state of being, right? Right? Like if your ego is tuned into fear, is tuned into traumas and fear and lack and survival mentality all the time and other people, then we have to also understand that to manifest from our soul, we have to die to the old identity that thinks that it needs to earn more or chase more or beg for more or try to, push this rock up the mountain type of mentality. When you can ease with it, you'll start to notice a naturalness take over and the God force and the God core starts to activate. The reality you want exists outside the rules of your current self. That's right. The reality that you want exists outside of the rules of your current self. This is in every single secret society that'll teach you this. Every single pantheon will understand this. Your by me personality of grind, hustle, and fear can't access the through me timeline, right? Is it happening by you or through you? This is the paradigm shift, right? From just survival consciousness to thriving consciousness. Okay. We're not coping anymore. We're not trying to go back on our mistakes, no regrets. You have to exit the ego's constant noise and the deeper intelligence to take over. And that's not a passivity. That's like a precision. That's plugging into the joystick outside the simulation, right? Not staying stuck as the elf that's just inside the game. Okay. Let me just check in. Bruh, this is so coincidental, says Doctor, because I just said to myself the other day that everything has an ego. Well, every living thing that is. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the field doesn't care what you want, right? It mirrors who you are. So if you're affirming abundance, but you're vibrating anxiety or unworthiness, your frequency overrides your words, right? So ego death is a moment when you stop trying to get and you start choosing to be. because that's when the manifestation really kicks in, because there's no longer a you that's preventing you in the way of the goal, right? It's already there. I've experienced ego death that's surreal, but was necessary for the new me to emerge. Yes, absolutely, Joe. And this is what it's all about, because the universe is math, it's not mood, right? The field doesn't care what you want, it mirrors who you are. So once you make that identity level change, right? You make that identity level change, you get that ego death, the moment where yourself starts to disappear. And all there is that beingness, right? That flow. We say flow state is selflessness, ego death, timelessness, right? No deadlines or like, I have to get it in by that time. And effortlessness. There's also richness, of course, but that's more so enrichment and a richness of the environment, like the flashing lights or like different cool accessories in an environment that it really enrich you and tap you in, right? So even being out in nature actually is very immersive and very relaxing and puts me into a flow. So this is what I'm really thinking about is that when the manifestation kicks in, there's no longer the old you that's in the way, right? Now, your affirmations work not when you say them, but when you're not resisting them with a hidden self-doubt, right? So the resistance is the ego. Oh, this blew my mind the other day. Okay. So when the ego dissolves, I'm thinking the resistance is like some other thing. It's my ego, right? So when the ego dissolves, then the frequency rises. Your torus field, I don't know if you know what a torus field is, but that field amplifies and then reality starts to bend. So the death of the ego is actually the birth of the real you. Because the one who knows you don't need to chase, you don't need to perform, you don't need to, manipulate life. You simply tune in, you align and you allow. And that's the highest form of that through me living, right? That flow state essence, that it becomes more of a lifestyle rather than a couple of practices you're doing, right? Some people make their entire personality around breath work. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that you go into an ego death, not because you're trying to shift out of your old identity, but because if you keep planting daffodils and expecting tulips, you can't keep manifesting like that, right? You can't manifest your higher self with the same identity that's afraid of your higher self. You get what I'm saying? Our brains on the whole subject of spirituality and whatnot, but that's just a theory though that I don't know is truth or not. That science is whack most of the time. Science has an agenda, right? So yeah, we can't trust every single thing that's coming out of science, but we can take little coordinates, I think, little pieces, neuroplasticity, all these different concepts. They really help us to understand the bigger picture. But yeah, let's not rely on just, you know, just watch where the money's being funded, and just be alert, be very discerning about these things, right? So your affirmations work not when you say them, but when you're not resisting them in hidden self-doubt, right? You could be saying, I'm confident, and then the rest of the time you're feeling shy, right? But that resistance, that shyness is your ego because it's self-conscious. Shyness is self-consciousness, it's ego. You see what I'm saying, guys? So when the ego starts to slowly dissolve, remember, it's not the end of you, it's just the end of your resistance, the end of your limitations. You're not losing control, remember, you're gaining access to a part of you that actually may seem to have all the answers, right? Yo, here for 15 minutes, then bounce. Yeah, I'm gonna make this a quick one, Ryan G. What I've understood today is that it's very important for us to not get so caught up and cling to the archetype that we chose, the identity that we chose on. It's important for us to kind of zoom out and let go a little bit for the actual magic to flow through us instead of trying to put, you know, a lot more obstacles in the way because the obstacles in the way are the ego. And this is what I'm realizing today. So the resistance that is within me is my identity that's seizing up because it's used to a familiar setting or an environment or a way of beingness, right? And it's bringing that up as kind of like a wall to my potentiality. So now I want to create such a lifestyle, right? When my torus field is flowing, when my microcosmic orbit is flowing, right? Everything is just buzzing, right? Chakras buzzing. Like, imagine if this is why ask formations work better, right? This is why affirmations work even better because, like, if you're just saying, like, for instance, what doctor is saying, the whole theory of saying I'm confident is an actual existing theory in science that says, oh, if you repeat certain things to yourself, eventually you'll get them. Yes. And the theory that your mindset is everything. It is, all is mind, that is a theory, yes. But again, if you're saying I'm confident, and then you're not, it's not going to work at first, right? So that's called priming. That's when you have to understand that you're priming yourself, right, towards that specific goal or end result. So don't fake your confidence. Understand that the confident you is the real you, right? And that's how I flipped it on its head. Because if you start to understand, why am I so confident? If you ask yourself, isn't that way better? Because your mind will chew on it than just saying I am confident. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, why am I so confident? Why am I so loved by the universe? Why am I so energized by everything that I do? Why does everything fall into place exactly the way that it is, right? And so it's important for us to start to slowly understand what's really going on underneath the surface of all this stuff. And it's being told to us in a specific way, but we don't understand that we have to be in a specific state to actually receive those incredible blessings, downloads, and activations from the universe, whatever you want to call that, right? It's just a shift in our way of being, right? Our personalities that slowly start to understand that it's not just my personality, right, that gets the goal. It's the state of being that gets the goal. And the state of being overrides the mannerisms, the idiosyncrasies, the ways that you do things, right? The state of being overrides all of that. The frequency overrides the little, you know, one moment of a mood shift or something like this. Okay. So a lot of people get terrified in law of attraction. It's like they do one mistake and one low vibration thing happens, and then their whole entire worldview comes crumbling down. Whereas I'm sort of more like, oh, these are just emotions, right? These are not negative emotions or positive emotions. It's just they're just emotions. And I can transmute them, I can alchemize them wherever I want it to go, right? I'm the director, I'm the commander of these emotions. I'm not there to get drowned by these emotions. Why are they there in the first place if I'm there to be drowned by them? Okay, they're in my sovereignty and authority. So I'm going to move these emotions according to the way that I want and create an emotional regulation. I think the Stoics tried to do this, right? But then eventually it's like it kind of got a little bit more convoluted as time went on because we started to forget those old ways and we started to get into this, I guess, more so nouveau shamanic way of dealing with things. Okay. Now, let me just read some. It's better to be confident than anything else that's not confidence. Hmm. You see, if you're saying like I'm losing my confidence, you're not really losing your confidence, right? Because confidence is not something you can lose or gain. It is something that is a state of being. Again. So it is something that is dynamic. It comes in, it goes through you, right? It washes over you and it goes away from you. It washes over you and it goes away from you. You win a nice soccer match. Hey, you got confidence in that moment. You felt competent. You felt worthy. You felt, yeah, I'm the man, right? But after that, it's like, can you maintain that same confidence, or are you clinging to that one victory, right? Are you clinging to that one victory, like, oh my gosh, I did it that one time, man, it was so cool. And you keep talking about it in front of everyone. Everyone kind of sees your insecurity around it, right? You're like, dude, that was years ago. You know what I mean? So stop resting on your laurels. Stop clinging to the past like that with your confidence, because you have to really understand that Godfidence is the way to go about this thing, right? That nowadays, that confidence isn't really something much that people have, unfortunately, it would seem. Absolutely. Because, well, they want us to be the opposite, right? They want us to be docile, just a bunch of pansies, right? A bunch of light workers that float up, right? And get easily offended by everything. And every little thing that's a comment is like, oh my God, that can harm me so much, right? No, you gotta have Makara skin, man. You gotta have Makara skin. And that's the thing that I keep telling you guys is that you gotta have that. willingness to move forward, right? Don't let other people's comments get in the way of your dreams. No way, you know? They want us to be sheep. That's deep bars, right? So, yes, they want us to be workhorses. Yes, they want us to be sheep. Yes, they want us to be clones. But guess what? We're not fighting for that narrative, are we? Are you fighting for that narrative? Like, I need to get my paycheck on time. I need to get there exactly at 7:15. I need to do this by this time, right? This is exactly what I need. And if it doesn't go like that, then whatever, right? Most people are trying to manipulate reality like this, right? Like if I do this like this, then reality will shift. No, reality is always shifting, right? We just have to catch the wave. You have to be like a silver surfer in this. You know what I mean? You have to catch the wave of the luck. You don't wait for the luck, or you don't try to work hard and then try to amplify luck. You are the luck. You are the lucky charm, so become it. Start to merge with it. Subject and object paradigm must be one. That's flow state. That's when you're tapped in. That's when you understand the manifestations coming through because you're not attached. There's a detachment, but there's a massive aligned action still, right? So that's the real code. It's like massive aligned action with no insistence on the outcome. So be it, right? I'm not, I mean, the one upstairs handles everything. I'm not here to, who am I, to say that it has to be like this or it has to go that way. Okay. So that's why the letting go helps because it's like yesterday I realized this, man. I was like, I told myself, like, Jesus, Buddha, God, Source, handle my problems for me. I'm not going to handle my problems, and think about them so much. So I'm giving them over to you as an offering. I'm giving them over to you as a gift. Please take care of them because I don't know what to do with them, right? And that's like a moment of ego death too, because you're like handing over your burdens to somebody else, right? You're going, here you go, right? And that's a beautiful thing. If you can actually tap into that framework and understand that, it's going to be very, very powerful when you just, hey, Jesus, take the wheel, right? It's that moment where you just start to understand, like, hey, there's a bigger consciousness at play here, right? And I need to transcend. This is something that Joe actually helped me with, is the understanding of like my brand earlier was called Coaching with Zoom, right? And it was all about me. It was all about little old me as a coach, doing things my way or the highway. Just keep going. Tony Robbins rah rah mentality, right? Kind of going for it. Go a go getter, not a go giver. But Joe transformed my mindset and he taught me, listen, you don't have to be in that mentality. You have to understand what you're really passionate about. You have to go from curiosity, then you find your passion, and then you amplify and or start to understand how is it helping your income? How is it helping your purpose? Are you doing what you love, sharing the love and being the love? And are you actually, maintaining this thing? And then as I started to do that work, I started to notice this coaching thing is not about me at all. It's about the people that I serve and that I'm helping. And that started to ego death, right? But more so it's an expansion of the container that holds the ego actually because there's a spaciousness now. You're living life for a transcendent concept like beauty, truth, love. I chose flow, right? I chose flow state. That was clear to me after that. But then I want you guys to really understand something. Where in your life do you still feel limited by your circumstances, the different things that people told you, right? Like where do you feel gripped by reality, like kind of held back, or like a certain kind of roadblock is showing up? Because that's really what you have to understand is that's your ego, right? That's your ego making it like that. And once you get it, once you can, all the power comes back to you. Is the universe linked with God? Um, I definitely think so, brother, because if you look at the images of the universe and you look at a cell, right? It's very similar. It's like the tiniest and then the largest, right? The tiniest of tiny and the largest of large looks the same. So there's got to be some link there. I don't know what exactly that is, and I'm not like a panpsychic, mentality or like everything is the universe, It's like it's all one, That's such a popular thing in the spiritual communities, right? It's all one, everything is oneness, right? But then there's also such a power into understanding your like you got to understand that it's not only the interconnectedness, of course that's there because every single organism needs another organism to thrive, right? We need parents or caregivers when we're little babies, right? Otherwise we're just right. If you're an orphan or if you're like separated from your parents, I get it. But at the same time, you had caregivers, right? You had people taking care of you. So we're dependent beings. We're actually not independent beings, but we think we are. And that causes a lot of our trauma because we are like, I'm going to be self-made. I'm going to be self-employed. I'm going to be independent, right? Whereas you need people, right? I realize that at least I need people. I don't want to be alienated from the world, right? I want to create a tribe, a society that I can thrive in, right? And the ones who resonate, they will magnetize towards those points. That was my main point is that, oh, you're a different person than yesterday because your body's changed because you don't know how much as your previous self. Attachment to ego, disconnecting from divine. Yeah, exactly. It's a disconnection, right? Not a connection. So that's the thing. Yeah. It's like a separateness. And that's how people get into paranoia. That's why people get into panic attack. That's why people get into this sort of mode where they feel out of control, right? Because if you're so attached to the experience of what is happening to you and you cannot become the witness in that moment, you're going to go into a deep panic because you're a survival-based being, actually, right? So that's just why we need this interconnectedness, but we don't need the oneness all the time. Like I'm not one with Rumi, but I respect Rumi and I understand the soul spark within him and the timeless nature of that art form that I can then use in my poetic language or whatever, right? So I'm not trying to be like anybody else because you're a unique fingerprint in this thing too. Okay. Do I have enough time? Yeah, I got a little bit more time. All right, so feel gripped by reality by the fact that I can't be like my previous self from before. Yeah, yeah. I get that, man. I really get that. The thing with that is you really have to take those little moments, you know? Like do a little deep dive, do a little nostalgia dive, man, and you'll find some gold nuggets that you can resurrect and bring back. That's what I would highly recommend. Like go through your yearbook, go through your like past photos and stuff. Go on a memory lane, like play some music, play some shamanic drums, and just go on a vision quest. Like go into your nostalgia, right? And start picking apart all of the different things that make you feel cringe or make you feel like, man, I wish I had that, man. That's so cool, right? Yeah, yeah, you can private message me, brother, on Instagram. It's in the description. Flow Zone Academy or Primal Sutra. All right. Let's see here. To be honest, I imagine my ego's being like egotistical over women and money and others. That's just being a hot shot. Yeah. It's almost like the ego has been so popularized in culture that it has certain like fragments or like archetypes, right? Like the go-getter, like the one that makes the money or whatever, right? Uh, Andrew Tate, I just meditate. I just came up with that meme the other day. Um, so there's certain events that trigger that of our egos. Yeah. Totally. And the ego, right? It like makes us feel that lack. That's why it gets us to chase and get on the hamster wheel, right? But when you can actually speak to it and understand it better, you notice that it's actually very scared. It's very terrified and it needs reassurance, right? Your ego needs reassurance actually at times. But we seek that reassurance from other people. That's the thing. We don't give ourselves internal validation. And that's a big problem for our manifestations because now we're reliant, right? If you're reliant on others, you can't create the spark yourself. You're always reliant, okay? You're always dependent. However, even though I'm dependent to other people around me and my surroundings to be sane, healthy, amazing individuals, I still have a hope that I can look at somebody who's struggling, has a mental illness, has a deficit, has a flaw, and I can still recognize that as a soul spark within me too. Or maybe a past life, or maybe a past life or something, you know? At least I can go there. At least I can give myself a mental scenario. Not that I want to, right? Pick your battles. But what I want you to really understand is, can I actually be able to keep my own reality at the same time, go through these microdose ego death moments with letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. All right, the surrender experiment, as Michael Singer would say. That got to be like Brendan Fraser from The Mummy and be fearless in the face of danger. Yeah, The Mummy was a great movie, huh? Man, that was a great movie. Uh, Sometimes that fearlessness is really required, you know, and that's why the shamanic stuff really helps because the shamans aren't scared for shit, right? They're like, so what? You know, that's kind of the energy of the shaman, right? They're like, so what? If you really get that, right? Our self wants to grow, but the ego is the cage we need to grow out of, burst out of. Yeah, totally. It shows us, it's like a mirror, right? It shows us our limits, it shows us our lack, it shows us our resistance. And once we break through, we break free, yeah, then it has no control over us. We're the ones that broke out of the cage, in a sense. And we got the soul wings back. We got the soul wings back. Mm. All right, guys. Any other questions? Any other comments? Otherwise, I'm going to end it. Thank you so much for this. This has been a really deep, profound deep dive into this topic. There's got to be more to this life than what we see and what we don't see, obviously. Yeah, absolutely. Because there's only so much visible light, right? There's only so everything is pretty much invisible to us. This is early for me. Mm, good. I mean, these messages and transmissions usually the like if you're struggling with something or you're like getting some download, it usually resonates is what I've noticed. These moments of clarity or epiphany, you know? Because we're all in this together in a certain way, like a strange high school musical type of way. But in a quantum field, right, all it's just registering is just our frequency. So let's just keep our frequencies high but stabilized, right? Don't let it crash and, go up and down, okay? Just practice keeping that and maintenance of your own presence, of being in that effortlessness, really, you know, being in that effortlessness. First instinct of ego is separation, according to Patanjali Sutras. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it does keep you separate. It keeps you very separate, very isolated, and thinking that you are an individual. I am my own world, right? That's even how Charles Manson sees people. If you've ever listened to interviews with that guy, right? And like looking at a breakdown, like you will start to understand like this person is actually in complete ego. He's in complete ego. Okay? What he's doing is he's painting himself out to be a victim, and then he's painting himself out to be a savior. And he's going back and forth between these two dynamics, if you notice. Okay? And what I've observed in this is that even he's saying that everybody's a world by themselves, right? He has this mentality. But think about it. This guy can, man. I love Charles actually, though I shouldn't say that because that's cringe. We can appreciate for what the archetypes have revealed, let's just say. Okay, let's not get into the actual person because he wasn't a good person, right? We know that. Um, I hated my ego death at the time, but it was necessary for my greater self to emerge. Yeah. Yeah, of course, because, it's like the ego wants to find a home, wants to find certainty. So there might be a phase after an ego death where you go, you know what? Everything is kind of quiet right now, right? Everything is just kind of like neutral. And I want that charging it. And you have to kind of build that momentum and charge after you get an ego death. Right. So I think that's a pivotal moment too, is like the picking up the pieces and rearranging them sort of thing. Like if your pieces scatter, right? The main thing about a glass ceiling, if you're ever trying to hit your glass ceiling, you can't hit like the thing about a glass ceiling is you can see through that glass. You can shatter that glass, right? But a lot of people they feel like that's their limit. That's the glass is the limit. And so they just give up, they stop, right? That they don't keep maintaining this momentum and on this journey of flow. But I've noticed it's one person, if you can reveal your talent, if you can be like the Disney movie Soul and find your spark, right? Then you don't become a lost soul, right? Because the whole process that I think the elites and all these people want for us is they want us to be lost souls. They want us to be completely just walking around aimlessly like ghosts instead of actual embodied sovereign beings, right? And now we're bringing it back, man. Now we're going straight into the body so that it can rise from the body, not to shame it, but to understand it better, to work with mind, body, and spirit all together, right? In this holistic system. Let's get it. That and he was on so many drugs. That too. That can also distort your ego very much so if you're on that many drugs. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Because it's poking holes in the aura, right? Is what's happening. And maybe he was possessed by a being. We don't know, right? I think I have a lot of theory that a lot of people are possessed or they have entity attachments, at least probably like more than 60, 70%, okay, of people who you see um popularized, okay, have entity attachments. So anyway, that's just my own perspective and theory. You don't have to take that as a, golden rule or whatever, but I have noticed that. And after ego death, the noise disappeared. Nice. Yeah, the head trash, as we call it, right? The head trash, the noise, the monkey mind, the incessant chatter of the ego, right? The ego mind identity, the EMI, right? And if you understand, if you go into a big environment, you'll notice more ego resonance, right? Because there's so many minds of ego together in one place. Like if you've ever been in a sports match, you'll notice the ego around them, right? The competitiveness, the clashing that's happening, right? Sports injuries, sports brawls, that's all from ego, right? In group, out group. Let me create more separation so that I create an enemy. Okay. So it's always been divide and conquer, but we understand we got to come back to our wholeness and integration again. And I think we're wise in doing that because we're starting to understand how this momentum actually shapes us into our lives. And we start becoming these like flow state shamans, right? With our own lives, as we choose to not have it go through by you, right? And instead go through you. Okay. I'll end on this, guys. Alex says, what's your theory on evil identities? So, hold on one second. Okay. So, evil identities. So, the thing about evil is it's what happens when the ego hijacks divine power. I think evil is a corrupted avatar, souls that forgot they were God in costume, and they started to believe that they were special, they were superior, they were their own God, they were separate. You see what I'm saying? So that's where the evil comes. Evil is an energy code, it's not a person, right? Evil isn't a mustache twirling villain, like you see in all the Disney movies or whatever, or like I don't know what the vaudeville, right? Evil isn't a vaudeville villain, okay? It's a pattern of distortion. So that's how we got to understand it. And consciousness separates from source, so it doubles down on the illusion of me versus them in a sense, right? And so it's the refusal to integrate shadows. And the most dangerous people aren't dark. I think they're just fragmented. They're just split, right? They're running rage they won't name, the shame they won't feel, and then trauma dressed up in designer clothes. So when you suppress your monster, you leak it. When you own your monster, you transmute it. This is what we call the priest beast, the highly integrated man, or the priestess beast, the highly integrated woman. Okay? And every being has a field, a frequency, a torus. Okay? When twisted by ego, it inverts, it becomes a parasitic. This is what entities do. This is what evil people do. This is what cult leaders do. This is what charlatans do. This is what narcissists do. This is what corrupt CEOs do. Okay. False prophets do. They take your energy because they leak their own energy. Okay. Evil thinks it's good though. That's the trip because it forgets God. Evil hides in righteousness as a costume. The tyrant always believes that they're saving the world or something, right? The colonizer thought that he was civilizing the planet. So evil doesn't come dressed as a demon with a pitchfork. It comes dressed as a savior with absolutely no soul. That's my idea of evil. It's a teacher for those who won't listen to love. Evil is a teacher for those who won't listen to love. If you won't wake up through grace, life will slap you with the boot of karma. And that's what evil does. It accelerates awakening through contrast. It's the necessary resistance in a realm of free will. It's the shadow that sharpens the blade, right? But if you worship the shadow, you become the curse. If you worship the ego, you become that, right? You're not here to destroy evil. You're here to be so integrated that it can't find any hooks on you anymore, right? Well, I do know you can either let them consume you or walk when it comes down to evil entities. Reminds me of the Devil Wears Prada when you said that. There's women. Amazing. Gonna remember that one. Amazing. Amazing, guys. Thank you so much for tapping in. I hope you got some value today. Okay. And sometimes I feel like even these evil identities, they're like glitches. They're like they have their own trajectory and they'll get sucked up back into source once their lifetime is over. Like these narcissists or these very, very big personalities, I think, who are like it's like they're on overdrive or something like that, right? And it's like that's all they get is that time. And then they'll, back into the soul cycler. But yeah, evil is as evil does. Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tapping in. I hope this helped you out today. I hope you change your manifestations. It's not all about the vision boarding and just writing things down. It's also about the frequency that you're living in, right? So change your mood, not your mind. Okay. Change your mood, not your mind. Stay in a good mood. Stay in a good mood. Stay in a good mood. You will start to manifest. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Stay in a good mood. That's what you need. You need that little bit of possibility, that little bit of hope, They did a rat study that TXL was showing that they did this study with all these rats, and they found that basically maybe TXL can explain it better. I'm just paraphrasing. But basically the hope that they could get food made them perform even greater, and it went out to like 60 hours or something. You know what I mean? So the hope is really key. And it's really important for us to move forward. We have to understand that we have a responsibility, a choice, and a freedom to move. Okay? And we have to understand it. And to use our discernment against this pure evil and remain in our goodness, remain with God, one letter away from good. Okay, let's get it. Upward spiral, gang. May we never be the same again. May the flow be with you all. We're all going to make it. I'll see you at the top. Stay legendary, okay? Let's win. Let's win. Peace, guys.